came back from North Carolina. You had shared quite a bit publicly, but about what was happening there. You flew in on the ground. You heard about everything else Tim has going on in the world. But where I wanted to start was maybe a little bit of the bad before we get to some of the beautiful silver linings you had too, which was, can you tell us what you saw there and what you guys were doing?
I saw failure. You know, we say that no one's ever coming to save you. This is an idea that I think all special operations lives by. You know, we have to be, one, intrinsically motivated, but more importantly, we have to be completely self-sustained, whether it's SEAL teams, the Green Berets, Rangers. When you go into a place, the expectation that's no one's going to come and get you. It's a scary thought that is the case for an American. That was the case there. These people were completely isolated. They had their lives, their existence was so dire. It was just like this tiny little thread that was keeping them alive. Now that temperatures are plummeting, you know, there's still isolated areas of Western North Carolina and Tennessee that are, you know, this is biblical, epic level proportions of disaster. We by the fourth day had a third trip going into Raleigh and into Charlotte to pick up more body bags. And of course, none of this is reported because it's an election year. The number of missing is still in the hundreds. And again, not being reported. And then in addition to no one's coming to save you, I in the first few days, we are in direct conflict with the people that are supposed to come and help you. They didn't like that, the individual responsibility idea of, do you want to get out of my way? I can do more than you can. You have 5 helicopters. I now have 55 helicopters. How about you give us air priority and you get out of the way? And they're like, but what if one of you guys mess up? I'm like, we won't. Just literally get out of our way. But they were trying to control airspace for their 5 helicopters because they didn't like the operations that we were doing, which were in conflict to the priority of theirs. And everybody that comes and works for us has to be not just positive energy creators, but they have to, when they go into an area, they can't take off of the economy in any way. So they have to bring their own water, their own food, their own energy, their own communication ability, whether that's Starlink or Iridium phones. And I was trying to put a young man with his young, beautiful wife and their brand new infant child into a hotel. And when I got to the hotel at 4:00 in the morning after doing a health and welfare check on the infant that had run out of baby formula and they hadn't showered in 5 days, I go to the only hotel, well, there's 2 in the town that had power, and it was completely booked up with federal FEMA personnel. And I was pissed.
So, first of all, this isn't your first disaster area that you've gone into, both as an active duty member of the military, which you still are currently, but also, with a nonprofit organization or an NGO like Save Our Allies. You know, that was you in Afghanistan as well during the last.
Now we're starting with some heavy stuff. Good morning,
I know,
Monday morning, everybody.
They're like, I thought we were talking about P&Ls.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to go to from there is, I was reading this tweet that you did that I thought was so good, and you had some silver lining, which was, you said, a 92-year-old Army Ranger vet volunteered to help the crew do evacuations. He said he is ready to go if we need him, said he hasn't jumped in 40 years, but has enough under his belt to help. I love the American spirit. So was there an American spirit that you saw despite it all?
Yeah, we'll super swing to the positive side of this. From Afghanistan to Western North Carolina, the response of the American people, the generosity of the entrepreneur and veteran community to do what the government couldn't even do. You know, we're $35 trillion in debt because our government is so gigantic, yet it took a few individuals stepping up. You know, Isaiah 6:8, I heard the voice of the Lord say, who shall I send? And I responded with, here I am, send me. Like, that was the war cry to thousands of capable, incredible people. And that 92-year-old is, I tweeted that to represent an idea. There were 25-year-olds with Toyota Overland. We make fun of them, and it's totally fine that we do because they're kind of dorks. And they came in from Tennessee, or they drove up from northern Florida, from Louisiana, or from Mississippi, and they got a couple of chainsaws in the back, Still or Husqvarna, and FEMA has roadblocks, and they're like, you guys aren't allowed to go up there. Like, you can't get up there. And they're like, want to make a bet? Like, I'll take 2 of them rednecks in a Toyota Overlander than over 100 PhDs from the federal government. Yeah. And they literally they could get into areas that nobody could get into. And they were bringing life-sustaining support to these people in these secluded areas. And it was just a will to make a difference. Grit. It was grit. So American.
I love that. How do you organize chaos like that? Like, I saw pictures of you sleeping in the back of your truck with like diapers next to you, baby formula, a little stove range. How do you organize a group of people in a time of chaos?
Yeah. Triage of, setting your priorities, and then being able to look at the resources that you have and apply the resources to those priorities. That applies to everything that you could do in life. Whether it's like, in my case, I have 4 kids at home and like a gorgeous wife. I got businesses. So in a day, I set my priorities of what I need to do. And then I look at the resources that I have, where it's, assistants and directors. And then I execute those things in accordance with the priorities. In a disaster area, I look at the priorities of work that we have to do, life, limb, eyesight, prioritize that by age. Obviously in the bell curve, the older and the younger are more vulnerable. And then look to a map, and then look at the resources that we have. Cool, I have 25 overland vehicles, 55 helicopters, a total of 900 personnel. We have 2 warehouses full of sustainment supplies. So let's go ahead and task organize and triage the people that we need to get to, and then take the resources that I have and address those in accordance to the priorities.
Yeah, I think a lot of people imagine when you say special operations that you're just like, we're going to go shoot some motherfuckers, right? Yeah. They just think you guys are badass.
We are.
Chris, you are.
Yep. Right, Chris?
That is true. They're very dangerous men. Yeah. But they don't realize how much planning, logistics, and sophistication goes into what you do. So how have you translated that to the business world? Like, I've been in your office where you have like 47 businesses in one office, and you have, all of these sort of independent operators. What do you think you brought? Like, what was the skill set that you brought that was the most critical from the military to civilian life?
Yeah. There's no difference in leadership from military leadership to civilian leadership. Leadership is leadership. And when it comes to strategy, rehearsals, and time management, civilian and military approach to that, I think, should be the same. It's one of the many reasons that you see so many successful people from the special operations community take not that they're regimented, but they are disciplined in their approach with, Jocko with Jocko Fuel and Origin, or Evan Hafer with Black Rifle Coffee, or Mike Glover with Fieldcraft Survival. The list just goes on of these successful special operations entrepreneurs. And they really just take the models that they learned in the military and they apply them. So yeah, we do, the majority of our work is in planning. If I'm going to be going into a meeting, I know who I'm meeting with. I know what the ask is going to be. I know financially what I am going to benefit, the return on investment. And then in addition to the planning kind of strategic approach to it, we also, this 1/3, 2/3 rule of, we also spend 2/3 of our time rehearsing and kind of wargaming what the potential outcomes could be.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, so Bin Laden, before they go in, of course they planned it, right? If they had a month to plan it, they spend 1/3 of their time, they spend 10 days of their time planning. The other 20 days of that month, they just rehearse it. They rehearse and they rehearse. They rehearse their contingencies. They rehearse their reloads of a helicopter going down, which it did, Navy SEALs. 20 days, 1/3, 2/3 of rehearsals.
Running a podcast or any content operation is a grind. The editing, the clipping, the captions. It's enough to make anyone quit before the fun even starts. Enter Riverside. This tool is your content powerhouse. Forget decent quality virtual calls. Riverside gives you 4K video, pristine audio, and makes deadweight tasks disappear faster than bad ideas. Their text-based editor slashes, silences, and edits errors with one click. Needing some extra clips? Riverside's AI Magic Clips finds the moments people actually care about and delivers them to you. No guessing, no endless replays. And here's the kicker. You don't even need to record in the platform to use its features. You have the option to upload your footage to Riverside, letting it handle the heavy lifting. So you can save your brain power for the creative stuff. So stop drowning in edits, get busy creating, hit the link in the description, use code Cody, and thank me later. So how does that play out in your normal life? Like, would that be like when you go into a meeting, you have a brief for every meeting, like a military brief? Like, here's who's gonna be there, here's the agenda, here's what I wanna get out of it. Somebody preps that for you. It goes on your calendar. And then, is that what happens?
Yeah, but before it goes on my calendar, it kind of goes through a refiner's fire of, do I have to take this?
That's a good question.
Can Carl do it? Can Matt do it? Can Nick do it? Can Matt Boudreau do it? So depending on the business, is this something that requires my time? And if it's not something that I have to address, if it's a problem and they're coming with a solution, I don't have to be in. You already gave the solution. So there's this beautiful thing that's happening in the military right now. They're reorganizing the way that they do leadership in something that's called Mission Command. Mission Command is a decentralized approach where I'm empowering the next lowest leader, the subordinate, to assume risk and responsibility and be able to make the decision on their own as long as they're in alignment with the philosophy and commander's intent. So my job is to communicate clearly my intent. Like, this is what we're trying to do with this business or with the culture. And then the person that is running that project should be able to make all of the decisions. The only time it should come to me is if, like, there isn't a solution. So here's 3 bad options.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm like, that sucks. Let's go with option B, which is the least of the 3.
I always giggle that I think the CEO's real job, like, everybody wants a CEO job, and all it is you get the worst problems all the time that nobody else can solve.
Yeah, worst personnel problems usually.
Yep.
And then worst financial situations.
Yeah. The other thing that I've really noticed with you, like getting to know you over the last year or so, is you do a really good job setting expectations and communicating very concisely. So I was wondering, like, did you always know that? Did you learn that? How do you teach somebody?
Yeah, like, and you ask my wife if I'm a good communicator. No,
maybe not that type.
Yeah, it's discipline, but I think it's become a byproduct of just not having time. And then when you don't have time and you look at the available time that you have, and everybody says that time is this, like, most important resource. I argue that attention is the most important resource. I could be doing something specific with my time, but if my attention is elsewhere, or 100% of my attention is focused on something else or ineffective or inefficient in the time that I have, I'm just wasting my attention. So to answer your question concisely, I know I'm pretty self-aware of what I'm good at. And all of the other things, I'm not going to spend my time on because I'm wasting my attention on those things. I'd rather just defer to the expert. You know, as I'm over there talking to Chris and I'm struggling through a couple of things, and he's really good at those things. So I was like, can we go talk about these things so I can use your expertise to answer things that I don't truly understand about how to invest in some things that are coming across the desk? He's like, yeah, jiu-jitsu, coffee, money, done.
Yeah, it's interesting because I found the people who are the most successful typically have the least knowledge ego out there. Not that we don't all have big egos. I'm sure you have a big ego in many ways, but you're like, no, I don't care where the information comes from. If it's better than me, smarter than me, gonna make me more money, gonna make me more efficient, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times the people who don't succeed are the ones that they think they got to do it all by themselves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And as I've had like 5 different careers in my life at this point, from fighting for world championships to obviously in the military, the entrepreneur, author, the Walt Whitman approach of, don't be judgmental, be curious. Your ego will always get in the way of that. It's like, I know everything, and I will be judgmental about how much money you have or your approach to business. Inversely, the opposite end of that is, I just want to understand more. I just want to know more, and I'm so curious about it. How many times am I asking you about how to do something or what to do? It's that curiosity is what gives us growth.
Yeah, it's so good. You said another thing that I loved, which was you tweeted, a wise man once said, be careful who you let on your ship, because some people will sink the whole ship just because they can't be the captain.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that, and how do you watch out for that?
I think there's three kind of energies with people. You have people that create negative energy. They're just like a succubus of joy and attention, and they need to be in these positional places of authority. And then you have kind of energy neutral people that they want to contribute, but they also have their goals and their ambitions, and those are amazing employees. Those are incredible people. And then there's just the natural leaders. That's the Mike Weimers. That's the General Georges. That's the Mattises that bring a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of expertise, no ego, and they joyfully will stand in the back while somebody else gets the credit for their accomplishments. Yeah. It's a really dangerous thing who we surround ourselves with. It's scriptural. It's very clear, that you effectively become who you surround yourself with. This also, studies have shown, economically, financially, your circle, plus or minus $100,000, is where you're going to end up. Yeah. But I am disgusted to the ladder climber that's always looking for like a rich person to hang around. That's a disgusting person. Yeah. But the people that I get to spend time with are joyful, kind, energy positive people that are incredibly successful as a byproduct of who they are as a person.
Yeah. So when you're looking for those natural leaders and the energy positive, how do you find them? Like, can you tell when you go and meet somebody, can you immediately look at them in the windows through their soul and say, that's you?
I having been embezzled a few times, I say
haven't we all?
Yeah, I'm a great judge of character, right? A trained interrogator that gets back to no ego. In the interview, you can usually tell pretty quickly somebody that's sincere and authentic, somebody that is kind and generous, and especially for like middle management or above, I always go and eat with them. I always want to share a meal with them. I want to see how they treat the staff. I want to see how long it takes them to pick what they're gonna eat.
Amen. That's top priority.
Yeah, man. You walk into, we got great coffee in Austin, and they're like, "Hey, want to grab a cup of coffee?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's meet at Starbucks." Cool, not getting hired.
Yes. See, I didn't even prep it with that. Yeah. I have a war on Starbucks.
Yeah, but not just philosophically, because like we're on opposite ends, and they're a competitor, but there's terrible coffee with horrible milk. And then you walk in and they're like, I want a soy latte with 2.5 pumps, and like you spelled my name on the cup wrong. And how they tip, I judge on that to see if they're a generous person or if they're like boastfully being generous because they're with me, or if like they're tipping to be appropriate and kind, and they like see a server's name and they use their name when they're addressing them. Like all these little tiny things are just little snapshots into who this person is. They sit down at the table to order, and you're like, imagine that person in your office. I will wear their skin in like 5 days as they So like you got to create authentic opportunities to see who these people are. And anybody, when they're well fed, they're caffeinated, they're dressed up nice, and they walk into the office nice and prepared, they can put it on a show for 20 minutes. You got to take them out of that environment to kind of get a picture of their character. That's a hard thing to do sometimes.
It's a really good point. I also think about when I look back at like where I've gone wrong with my dad has a line that I love, which is like, you can't do a good deal with a bad guy. And I mean, I think about that a lot in business, or at least you better be real thoughtful if you're going to do a deal with a bad guy, and you better make sure to CYA. But one of the things that I've noticed too is it's hard for bad guys to last past like 4 or 5 p.m. Yeah. Like it's like it wears off throughout the day. And so I think that idea of just like increasing the surface area of exposure is a really easy way to figure out, do I actually want to work with this person? Do I like them? The other thing that I've noticed, I'd be curious if you have anything else about people who have been bad for you, because I do think your worst decisions won't usually be the actions taken, but the humans chosen. And so like I've noticed also those types, underhanded digs, passive aggressive, like real high indicator for doesn't really like you, doesn't like maybe super high charisma, but doesn't actually like you. Yeah. Have you noticed anything else that you thought, oh, anytime I see that, out?
Yeah, I try not to be like snap judgment on, because we don't know what's going on in somebody's life, but there's definitely in the aggregate and like the collective of how they treat other people. In that idea of, after 4 p.m., again, that surface area of trying to find opportunities outside of this conducive environment for them to put on a show, where when in special operations during selections, whether it's BUD or Special Forces selection or any of the other units, you're always being selected. When we're recruiting, I wouldn't go and recruit somebody because they were like the best and the fastest. It's when they weren't on, we'll use the field, they weren't on the field, and they're on the bench and their team is out. And how are they supporting them? How are they encouraging them? When they come back in, hey, great job. Have you thought about doing this? Those are all selfless opportunities where they're not looking for the limelight. Rather, they're looking for ways to encourage the team to succeed. And, when you look at professional athlete recruiters, they love going to games where that star player that they're there to recruit is playing against not a peer level team to see how good this person is. They already know how good they are. They're trying to get a peek into that person's character. Like, are they picking up gear at the end of the game? When the person has when one of their teammates has a rough session on the field or on the ice and comes off and they're like, oh man, like you're doing great. Like let's keep going. Like you can get this. Those are the snapshots where, again, that motto of you're always being selected, you're always being graded, you're always where it's really difficult in the work environment to see into somebody's character and to see what their grit looks like. And when somebody shows you, believe them.
Yeah, that's true.
When they're a passive aggressive dick, they're a passive aggressive dick. When they're leaving early, to go do the thing that they need to do, hey, I gotta believe them. And I've never let someone go in a layoff or fired somebody that I was not immediately relieved within 48 hours that was the right thing. And I wish that I had done it months prior.
Me too.
Ever.
I know. I've never once regretted a fire, which is fucking crazy.
But every single time you're like, why didn't I just do it like 2 months ago? It would have saved me. It would have, every single time.
Every time. You've also said something that I loved. You said,
I say a lot of stuff.
You said you want to avoid idiots in your life, live a life they can't exist in. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, and I mean it. Man, I was just texting with Andy Stumpf as I was driving here, hands free. I wasn't like on my phone, and I was not disparaging people, but I was rather praising the small circle of people that I have now, and this small circle in the refiner's fire. When you're making a weapon in a forge, you take a chunk of metal that's of good quality, but it still has a lot of imperfections in it, and it has to take a shape. And you stick it in the fire, you heat it up, which is torture to the metal, and then you take it out and you pound it. And every time that you pound it, those little tiny bursts of fire, those are imperfections coming out of the metal. And then you submerge it and you repeat that process hundreds of times. And then whatever that tool is supposed to become, a hammer, a sword, it then starts taking the shape of that. And your friends have to be that way. If it's a crappy piece of metal, it will break, it will rust, it will oxidize, it will chip, and it will fall away and ultimately become useless. That circle, I cannot have idiots in my life, and there are no idiots left in my life because they can't exist in the life that I live. That's a life of selflessness. That's a life of discipline. That's a life of commitment. That's a life of monogamy to my wife. That's a life of purpose for my children. And it's so clear and it's so obvious when people don't share those values. We're on a work trip and I'm walking in the lobby. The bar is to the left, the elevator is to the right. I know that our first meeting is at 8 a.m. in the morning. I was just in New Hampshire for SIG, and our first meeting was there at 8 o'clock. We're about 25 minutes, so I knew I had to leave by 7:30. I wanted to make sure I got a good, healthy breakfast with plenty of water. So moving in reverse planning, that means my workout is going to be at like 5:45, 6. Gives me a 45-minute workout, 25 minutes to get eggs, shower, dress, leave by 7:30. So as I'm walking in, I know that's what my morning is going to look like. The person that I was traveling with saw a couple of cute little hotties in the bar. It could not have been more clear. Option A, go left. Option B, have a plan, go right, go to the elevator, take a shower, go to bed, wake up, work out, go to my meeting, go home to my wife. Sure, I could go left and like maybe I'm not going to go hook up with them, but I'm just going to talk to them, you know. Then I'll have a couple of drinks too. But then they're like, oh, the bar's closing, last call, maybe we'll just go upstairs and we'll just hang out for a couple of times. We'll take a couple of drinks to go. Then we go upstairs to the room and we're hanging out. And like obviously the slippery slope of a bad decision all was the genesis, the catalyst was walking through the door without a plan. So that person cannot exist in my life. That person is not going to be in one of my companies. Because if you're faithful in the small things, you can be faithful in the big things. And if you're not going to be faithful to your wife, you're not going to be faithful with my money. If you're not going to be disciplined with what you're going to be doing with your time, you're not going to be disciplined with my time. And you can get fucked. You know, like get out of my life. I don't want it. I know that sounds harsh, but like.
No, 100%. I think, you know, in a world in which discipline is not normal and in which people do not put those on high who do good things, but who do flashy things, I think finding other people who have that same moral compass is rare and beautiful. And so, and you know, especially for people who have options, one of the other things you said, Jesus, you have said a lot, you're talking all the time, is that, you know, and it might not have just been you. You might have been quoting somebody else. Maybe it was Jordan Peterson about how he said that, you know, it's not, what does he say about the violent man? It's like, do you remember his line?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get the wave tops because it's a long quote, but ultimately the bluff, the bottom line up front is a weak man is not a good man because he's not capable to do one or the other. A strong man that's capable of violence but chooses to be kind, chooses to be gentle, he's clearly morally a good man because he has the capable to do violence. That weak man is just, frankly, useless. He can't protect you. And if he can't protect you, then he definitely can't hurt you because he's weak and useless. On the other end of the spectrum is the man that is capable of great violence. And rather, he touches you gently. His hands are calloused. He has never set down the sword, but he has never used the sword against you, but rather only to defend you. And it's a beautiful concept, whether it's in business, in the military, you know, I've never had a harsh hand to my children, not once out of anger. You know, I woke up at 5:30 this morning to go to Gracie Amida Cedar Park to train with Giancarlo Bodoni, the 2-time ADCC world champion, who was teaching class at 6 a.m. to come home to make breakfast for my kids before they went to school. And that is the standard that I expect from everybody that I'm going to spend time with.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What about when you were not this level of man yet? Because you are very open too about not having been that forever, like all of us. Can you attract great leaders and team members if you are not a great leader and team member?
Yeah, you can. There are, especially in the military, it's hard because often, the worst get promoted, and
Everybody felt that before? You're
yeah,
like, yeah, my
it happens
boss.
in business, it happens in the military, and really great leaders will go into a bad leadership problem because they run towards the sound of gunfire. They turn and they face the problem and they want to address it. And they see whether it's a culture problem, a leadership problem, a substance abuse problem in leadership. They put themselves in, and they're going to that bad leader, not for that leader, but rather for the benefit of the collective. And like, give me that guy.
Yeah, chosen hard.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I want to open this up to questions in a second, but this is a room full of either current owners or entrepreneurs or those who want to delve into it. And I'm sure all of them would love 60 seconds with Tim to say, like, what piece of advice would you give me? I know it's broad, but what would you give a group of aspiring on their way entrepreneurs and owners?
Yeah, I mean, growth is not linear, in business or more often as a person. If you read my book, Scars and Stripes, you'll see failure after failure after failure after failure after failure. I didn't fail at the same thing twice. So I'm either like extraordinarily versatile in all the ways that I can fail at something. That's not an attribute that you want to be good at. So I'm writing a book right now called The Purpose of Pain. And every moment of growth in my life has come from adversity. Every single opportunity for character development, the catalyst was a mistake. I put my hand on the stove and I burnt my hand. I learned not to put my hand on the stove. I was dating Kyria Gabriel Battaglia in college. She was like 4 or 5 years older than me. She was like a 10. I was young and like a 6.5. And, when she's hooking up with like 3 other dudes, she broke my heart. I learned a lesson, not at the 6, not to hook up with the 10 it's a good lesson. You go into a partnership with a guy that doesn't have the moral values, but has the acumen to look successful and to look the part, but you didn't take him to lunch. You didn't see how he treated the waiters, but you did know that he had a side thing with his wife. And then lo and behold, he embezzles you for, a few $100,000. Who here is surprised by that?
Yep.
Yeah. I was. If you want to know how dumb I am, there's another example. Like, the list is long and distinguished of all the ways that I've messed up.
Oh, yeah.
But embrace the suffering, embrace the adversity, embrace the struggle, because that is the process. Like that title, The Purpose of Pain, is we're in an era where everyone's getting softer, everybody's getting weaker, everybody's getting poorer, everybody's getting, sicker. It doesn't have to be that way. You can just rather go the opposite direction of the masses and choose discipline, choose regiment, choose pain, choose struggling, choose adversity. And on the far side of that hard work is everything that you've ever wanted.
Agree. Yeah, well, the other thing too is if you guys ever are not motivated, Tim's Instagram is incredible because this psychopath does all these workouts nonstop, and you'll notice one thing about them, or I do. He's always like laughing or smiling while he's doing the world's worst workout of all time. And I noticed this because my husband's sort of the same way. He's like, he finds joy in pain, sort of. And so he's a great follow on Instagram. But I also love that about you is, you almost smile, you wickedly smile while you're suffering.
Yeah. That once more into the fray, it's the Scottish people lifting up their kilts and, whipping their ding-dongs around before they charge the English. That happened. Like, that is historical. This idea is we're outnumbered 3-1. They have heavy cavalry. but I'm gonna like whip my dick around to let you know like where my headspace is at. That is this idea of like, I'm looking at the scariest thing. I'm looking at adversity and struggle. But I've surrounded myself with extraordinary, wonderful people, and I'm gonna go into it with joy. And happiness and joy is a choice. Everybody, all of us, I'm not going to go into all of your lives. All of us have struggles. And, you know, if I don't believe this curated, editorialized crap that's on social media, you know, if you could pull back a couple of layers and see some of the struggles that I have in my life right now, I still got to wake up at 5 whatever, kiss my beautiful wife on the cheek, you know, go get a rad workout with a 2-time world champion that's way better than I am now in my mid 40s. And as he's in like the peak of his career and mopped the mats with my soul. And I was in joy and gratefulness the whole entire time. And that was a choice. I landed from a trip overseas in the wee hours of the morning last night. You know, flew over the Atlantic at whatever midnight in a red eye to come here and get a great workout, and then come here and have a great conversation. Jet lagged as heck, but filled with joy and gratefulness. So it's a choice.
I love that. Okay, yeah. What a good human. Okay, I'm going to come to you for a question too. One thing I'll say also is if you guys haven't checked out, I know they're always filled, but he has these sheepdog response courses here, which I'm going to have a bunch of my female employees take too. But they're incredible for team building and leadership. And so learning how to defend one another, learning how to do hard things, it's another thing that I think is really cool that you did. Okay, and the only thing I'm going to ask is we don't have a ton of time. Tim literally has to jet out of here, so we're going to usher him out. He's not going to have time to like sit and take pictures. It's our fault for programming scheduling, so just let him beeline out of here.
I have 17 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to go right here to a question.
Quick hit for you. Tim, I want to say thank you for your incredible service to our country. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go in fast mode here because I know there's probably tons of questions for you. Thank you again for your tips on your empathetic energy that you glean from your folks that are going to bring into your company. But what are your sneaky 1 to 2 questions that you ask folks where they reveal more of themselves?
Yeah, easy. Yeah, one is, what does a typical day look like for you? Like I can tell you from 5:30 a.m. tonight or this morning until 8:30 p.m. tonight when my kids go to bed. I'm not going to go into what I plan on doing from 8:30 until 10:30 from when my wife goes to bed. But from literally 5:30 a.m. until 10:30 tonight, I know every minute of my day has been planned. And I'm not looking for, you can look at somebody's calendar and I know if that is a $5 million entrepreneur, if that is a $1 billion business owner, just by your calendar. And similarly, the role that I'm hiring you for, your approach to your time should be equivalent and appropriate for the role that you're about to go into. So that's one. What is your timeline like? And then 2 is I want to see failure. I despise, like, you know, the question of what do you struggle with? You're like, man, I struggle with caring so much. Yeah, come on. I love the transparency, humility. That is a really good indicator when somebody truly gives you a fault. You know, like something that they're struggling with. Their child has diabetes, and and I'm in the business of protection and preparedness. You know, and they sit there and honestly, like, power goes out. My insulin is going to last 6 months. My kid dies in 7. And I can see they're scared. Man, I want that person on my team.
So good. All right, Alex, yeah.
Hey, Tim, how are you? I'm a business owner who helps other business owners, and I'm on a mission to help as many business owners as possible duplicate their efforts and get out of the day-to-day operations in just 90 days so they have more time to work on their business versus in their business. I'm curious to know, what is your best piece of advice to help business owners who have limiting beliefs that no one can run the business better than them?
A successful future business owner, non-entrepreneur, and there I get the phase of the grind. The business owns you, where later you own the business. For that transition to happen is you're going to have to be able to build, mentor, and then ultimately delegate responsibility and authority to the people that are going to be running that. And that is a selfless act. That is you having faith and a little bit of courage in the people that you are bringing into your organization to do it, and they're going to do it better than you. Your ego will get in the way every single time. I promise you, every single person in my office, Matt Smith, Yako Kalili, Zach Mayo, Carl Kringle, they are smarter than me. They are better at what they do than I could ever, like what they do in the business is better than what I do. Matt Boudreau running Apogee, he's 1,000 times better than what I could do in that same role. And like having the confidence that that person can do that thing, that business will own you forever until you make that transition to you owning the business and empowering other people to do it for you.
Beautiful.
You're working a lot in North Carolina. I know, or at least from my understanding, you specialize more in the triage side, but we have a bunch of people with trades businesses here. So can we partner with you, or is there an organization that you partner with that we can donate materials, time, people to help rebuild the community?
Yeah, this was a great question. I appreciate it. This was the first time that we've actually ever done a United States CONUS-based disaster response, and it was because it was in North Carolina. North Carolina is the home to special operations on the Army side. It's also the home to our headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it would have been really selfish for us not to pivot some of our resources to a disaster there. And we are definitely—
Say the name of the organization.
It's Save Our Allies. And if you email info@saveourallies.com, or you can just drop my email down. What is the one for Save Our Allies? I think it's tim@saveourallies.org. We have Caroline, who runs all partnerships, and we partner with probably 20, 30 different people in government, and then 50, 60 businesses that have legitimate contribution. There's a lot of people that, hey, we can help, so our name is on something, so we can say we're there to help. Like General Donahue, he's a 3-star general. He does not allow anybody to contribute. He will eliminate them from an organization in a heartbeat if they're not bringing significant resources to the table. We just don't have time to manage hundreds of small, I want to have my name on a billboard for an investment type partners. So on the construction side, we're rebuilding bridges and roads. We're fixing houses, building entire downtowns that have been decimated. So we would love help. SaveOurAllies.org is the organization, and that's the way to go.
Anna, I'm going to make sure you get one of Tim's books too. Beautiful question. Thank you for being a giver.
So given your experiences in the high stakes fields of military, MMA, business, do you have any principles or mindset shifts that you have found most valuable for thriving under pressure, and then how that can be effective in high-paced business environments?
Yep. There's a special operations truth that says you cannot prepare for a crisis after the crisis occurs. The soft truths are the cornerstone to the book that I'm writing, The Purpose of Pain right now. Another one that applies to that is that people are more important than hardware. Those two soft truths, the first one, you cannot prepare for a crisis after a crisis occurs, and that people are more important than hardware. I can have the nicest computer on the desk of all these employees, and I can have the best chair, a standing desk, and whatever the current 2024 work optimization environments are. But if the person's not the right person, and if I'm not recognizing that me mentoring and building the next leader is the most important thing that I can do, I'm just wasting my money and pouring stuff uselessly into equipment and stuff, because people are the most important commodity. And you have to prepare. When I said before I go into a meeting, preparation occurs and rehearsals occur. I don't just have a white paper about who I'm about to talk to, which includes their bio, what their ask is going to be, what we want to do in that partnership. I then rehearse. I will sit down with Carl and we'll go over like even role playing and wargaming, what that conversation is going to be like, how a couple of different options as the conversation unfolds, and then I'm pleasantly surprised when somebody brings in something that I didn't prepare for. I'm like, yeah, sick.
Okay, last question here, just briefly, please, my dear.
I speak quickly. My question was, you were talking about the switch in military attitude of new leadership. How can we get that not only in our businesses, but also into our society and especially into our governments? I'm from London. We have the NHS. It's a nightmare of middle managers who are afraid to do anything and be held accountable for anything ever going wrong, even if it would be the reasonable choice. What's your hot take on what we could do to enact that change?
Individual responsibility in the preamble of the Constitution. Please, if you don't have the Constitution and you haven't read it in a while, please pick it up and read it. The entire idea of we the people was only possible because the people were a capable, individually responsible group of people. And they carved their existence out of the wilderness. They fought Indians and bears. Then they had a tyrannical government that said they were going to impose a 5% tax on a single commodity, and they threw tea into a harbor, and then one shot heard around the world. They killed every single one of those people that represented that government and then kicked them off the continent. And that was only possible because the people were strong, the people were disciplined, the people were educated. And like in the military, we are able to do mission command as our new command approach because we are going to have faith and confidence that down to the small unit level, they are training the soldiers in their key medal task. So every unit has a medal, mission essential task list. A cook is going to have a way different medal task than an infantryman. An infantryman is going to be able to shoot, move, communicate, medicate. A cook is going to be able to purify water, remove bacteria from food and be able to provide nutrients to the fighting force. Very different medal tasks. But I, as a leader, am going to have high confidence that once I give my intent, that they're going to be being able to execute that because I have trained them and I have mentored them and I've prepared them to be able to assume the authority, the responsibility, and then I'll authorize them to go and take that, and be able to make those decisions without me being there. And there'll be a learning curve. They're going to make mistakes, just like you would. It's not like if you were in that role, you're going to bat 1,000. You're going to make mistakes just like they will. And you will use those as opportunities for both of you to grow, one, you as a leader, and then them as an individual to be able to contribute in a more meaningful way as time goes on.
Beautiful. All right, Tim Kennedy, everybody. Thank you, Tim.
You're not generating $10 million doing your one thing. You haven't arrived yet. You're not good enough yet.
This episode is with Mike Michalowicz, who wrote the book on profiting first and is going to teach us step-by-step playbooks for you guys to profit and make money right now in your business.
To have a successful business, there's an intersection of 3 key elements you have to nail. What sales does is it can bring in more cash, but also brings in more organizational stress. You have more responsibility now. Our customers will never say to your face, your business kind of sucks. But what they will do is go online and slam your reputation. So you can't trust their words, but you can trust their wallet. I got a magical Jedi mind trick question. I guess I got 2 that will blow your mind away. First question.
We've been blown away by how fast the show is growing. Like, getting to hang out with you every single week is so cool. But most of the people who tune in every week still haven't subscribed, which is crazy. It is the simplest way, though, to help us keep scaling, bringing the best guests like Mike Michalowicz and making the big deal a big deal. So I can't thank you enough for your support. Like, we would be nowhere without you guys. And I just want to jump back into my conversation with Mike, but I also want you to do it subscribed. Oh, and share it with a friend if you like this episode. I think it's better when you profit together, Can
I start with some kind of real challenges, rapid fire, that we've heard from owners?
Yeah, throw them at me.
Okay. What if you're a business owner, you're weeks away from running out of money? You're kind of panicked, you don't know what to do next. What's your first move if you call Mike?
All right, so first thing is you acknowledge you're pretty much every business owner on the planet. There's a saying that most businesses are on the brink of failure. And the statistics show that most businesses don't have enough cash flow for 4 weeks. But my analysis, and I love contrarian thinking, my analysis is most businesses are not on the brink of failure because most businesses find a way to survive that moment. Somehow, some way, most businesses, yet again, doggy paddle and get above water. So I think most businesses are on the brink of success. It's just a good strategic move. So what we do, if a business like that calls, and I also invest in businesses, we do what's called reclamation services. We go into businesses that are specifically in struggle, is we go through the client base, we deploy the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule, identify who the best customers are and say, hey, what can we do right now to serve you? Because they're already the best customers. We get revenue in that way. We usually cut the lowest 20% of customers because inevitably they are costing you money and you don't even see it. It's like, oh, I'm making revenue, this is great. The expenses are in excess of the revenue and the emotional weight is killing you. So we get rid of the unfit customers, we amplify the best customers, then we start realigning the business around that.
I love it. So 2 moves. You call up your best customers and say, basically, you're asking them, but not this way. How can we sell you more things? Which is what else do you need and how do we increase the LTV of every single person?
Yeah, and you tell them you love them. Like when you tell a customer, hey, you're such an important customer to me. I value you so much. I just want to see if there's any other way to serve you. Yeah. Reciprocity kicks in. They're like, we love you too. And we were thinking about getting this. Can you do it? Yeah.
I love that. Okay. What do you do for someone who has more revenue than they've ever had before, but is actually making less profit?
That again is every business I know. I was speaking yesterday at an event and I asked the group, it's similar size. I said, who wants to increase their revenue? Everyone's like, that's what we need to do. That's the solution. I said, arguably, that's one of the most dangerous things to do because it's a reckless belief. We believe that sales cures everything, and that is total nonsense. Total nonsense. What sales does is it can bring in more cash, but also brings in more organizational stress. You have more responsibility now, more things you need to service. So when a business says we're cranking up revenue, I am looking to see, are they doing it through diversifying their offering, which I think is a mistake. Instead of becoming special, they're doing many things and they dilute their ability, they're not efficient. We'll look, are they serving customers with varying demands? Customers that are perhaps big names, but then they assert their strength. I had a client of mine I worked with, Walmart was their best customer, #1 in revenue. We looked at them, their demands were off the charts. They said, when you deliver your product, it was like a bracelet thing, they said, it's gotta come on a Monday at 10:30 in the morning, and if you're outside like a 5-minute window, we're gonna penalize you. If the SKU, that UPS code, if it's more than a 1/4 inch below the top of the box, we're gonna penalize you. And Walmart does this for efficiency, that's why they do it. But my client, they saw that as good revenue, it was crushing them with the penalties. Their #2 customer was Dollar General. Is that around here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Dollar General's like, hey, deliver it whenever you can because we're always playing second fiddle to Walmart. So, Cody, you'll love this. Here's what he did. He put a sign above his desk and he had 15 employees. The sign says this, our policy is to answer the call on the first ring. If it's the Dollar General, answer the call and start taking their order. And if Walmart calls, let it go to voicemail and then call them back when you're done. The miraculous thing was the next one. It said, we always answer in the first ring. If the first call is Walmart, start taking their order. But while you're on the phone with Walmart, if Dollar General calls, immediately hang up on Walmart. Like, say, sorry, we have an emergency, disconnect and prioritize. So they're not cutting off customers or revenue, but they're prioritizing the quality revenue. It transformed his business. It was a family business. It was 25 years old. They were struggling to get 4 million. It went 4, 18, 27, sold it.
You know what's crazy too, and we'll take you guys through this process. So you'll go through a process where you basically analyze your cash flow, and we'll use a 13-week rolling cash flow, which I love. And then we'll also talk to you about your underlying clients. What's your best avatar versus your worst? Because I think a lot of times we lump our business all together. We don't know what customers cost us to get, and we certainly don't know what customers cost us to keep. And it's not because we're bad operators, it's because we're busy. And it's sort of hard. And so it takes this pause and analysis. And the truth of it is, your team is not gonna do that. That is gonna have to be a you thing at most levels of the business.
That is brilliant. I'll add to that, there's a real simple strategy that we've deployed. And what you do is you sort your clients out over the last year the revenue they've generated for you. And the reason is people lie to each other constantly because it's social grace. Like when you saw me, like, hey, Mike, it's so good to see you. I'm a huge fan. I'm like, are you, Cody? Are you? But
I am.
Thank you. But could you imagine you come up to me and say, oh, your books really suck, Mike? Like, you can't do that because of social grace and not be like, well, that's offensive. And then we get into this disagreement. Or customers will never say to your face, you know, your business kind of sucks. Poop 911's here. Oh, it's kind of like more turd 411. You know what I'm saying? like they're never gonna. That was a good one. That was good. That was juicy. But they would never say that to you. But what they will do is go online and slam your reputation. So you can't trust their words, but you can trust their wallets. So don't trust words, trust wallets. If they buy from you repeatedly or they're demonstrating they value you. But there's a second test. It's the intersection of them valuing you, spending money, with your appreciation and enjoyment of them. So when the car ID pops up on your phone, are you like, oh my gosh, they're amazing? Or are you like, oh gosh, I wish they didn't exist? Which one do you pick? Because if you have a customer that generates a lot of revenue, but you don't like working with them, you automatically, inherently, subconsciously perhaps, deprioritize their service. You don't call them back as quickly, you delay it, you avoid it. So we want the intersection of best customers that you love working with, circle those customers and start to clone them. And what I mean by cloning them, I find out where they congregate, where's their associations or communities, where's the people like them hanging out, and I'm gonna insert myself there.
That's so good. Yeah, we obsess on client avatars, and I feel like the number one thing that most people do wrong in business is they sell demographically as opposed to really nailing their avatar. Like I've never met a 45 to 65-year-old male 40% of the time and 60% of the time a woman. I mean, these days, who knows? But historically, no. And so, you know, I really like this idea of what are the characteristics of this type of avatar? And then how do we go after them?
Yeah, and look for the congregation points. So when I'm targeting a market, I'll say, is there an association for this? You know, this is when I'm selling B2B. Is there an association? Is there some kind of meetups or something like that? For example, maybe I'm serving pilots, retired pilots. Well, I'd say, is there a retired pilot association? Which actually I know there is. So that's an opportunity. They're already congregating. But if I look for single moms who hate their mom, that demographic exists, perhaps even in this room. But do they have a meetup club? Maybe not. If they don't have a congregation point, you have to assemble it yourself. It is the most exhausting, time-consuming effort. It rarely fails. So when someone says, I have a niche, it's, you know, I serve single moms who don't like their moms. I mean, that's not a niche because you have to now assemble them together. But if you're serving the airline retired pilot association, I know where they're going. They may have a dedicated podcast and you insert yourself there and they see you ubiquitously. They see you everywhere.
So good. Let's zoom out for a second. What does everyone get wrong about making money in business?
Okay, so this is very opinionated. It ain't about the money. And you probably heard that before, and when you don't have the money, it's very easy to say. I mean, it's very easy to focus on the money, and then when you do have the money, it's very easy to say it ain't about the money. My perspective is both. So I became a multimillionaire when I was in my early 30s. I had an exit to Fortune 500, Robert Half International. You've sold quite a bit.
I do remember that.
You remember them? They had account temps, office temps. Yeah. I was doing computer crime investigation, and the Enron trial broke. My company, right place, right time, we got the Enron trial. Now, to give context, we were not the prosecution. That's the FBI, the CIA, you know. We were the defense. So if you remember names like Kenneth Lay, Andrew Fastow, they were our clients. They were guilty, by the way. That was their defense. That was their defense. They were guilty. And we got put on the map very quickly. What I assumed was, when I sold that business, and it was a lot of money, I was like, I've arrived. But I really didn't. What I did, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but it's important to admit it, is I thought I had to show the effects. So I bought all the stable of cars. I got a private place out in Lanai, which is an island owned by Larry Ellison now. For sabbatical, we got a place in a very affluent town in New Jersey where I live. And I'm like, look how important I am, people. And like, no one gives two craps. Then, total idiot, I blew all my money because I thought I knew everything. I knew very little. And with the collapse, no one really cared either. no one really cares. I found the essence of a good business is that it's an expression of our purpose. Like, I know from the interviews I listened that you do, from the literature you put out, you're such an authentic, real human, that this platform is an expression of who you are. Listen, your mom is here. The last time my mom came, I was doing like a puppet show in 3rd grade. Like, that's a dream to have your mom here. Which also indicates the authenticity in this. I think too many entrepreneurs go for the money only to find out that was a mistake. We gotta go for it because it's an expression of our heart. That's my opinion.
Oh, it's so true. And you know what else is crazy that I love that you talk about often? That statement, "it's never about the money," was so triggering to me when I didn't have any money. I'm like, that's cute, Mike. Like, give me $1 million, I'll figure it out.
Right.
But what I've increasingly realized is you never don't have enough money, you don't have enough knowledge.
That's right.
Because if you had more knowledge, you'd see that there are 372 ways to get the cash.
Yeah.
And the real question is just like, what's the best way? That like what's the best game you want to play? What's the right game you want to play for you? Who's the right investor? What's the right way to get capital? Like, it's just, then it becomes what's the right fit, never just it doesn't exist, why don't I have it?
Yeah.
And if I could impart one thing to people more often, it would be that. And that you can make money doing anything, which is great. Pooper scooper. Like, we're just also, everybody should just wear their business shirts here, because look how much marketing. You guys are going to have like an ad on this podcast. It costs $1 billion, not for you two. Poop 911. Call my ladies.
Do you mind if I flip it on? I got a question for you.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So when it comes about money, I heard recently, and I've experienced this, and I'm curious about you, is there's not a single person who's ever had enough money. So I was talking to personal finance experts as this interview series, and consistently I heard, wherever someone is financially today, they feel their freedom is double of their current worth. So if you're worth $100,000, when I get a $200,000, I'm good. And people too are saying 4, and people in the middle are saying 2. So I'm curious, have you arrived financially?
Oh, no.
No, right?
Never.
Bullshit.
I know, is that
But
crazy?
also true.
Yeah.
And me neither.
Well, even like Mom, we were having this walk this morning. Remember what you asked me? She was like, aren't you proud? Like, the headquarters, and look how everything's grown. And because most of my businesses have been remote for many, many years. I ran businesses where we had people all over the world. She's like, you have look, I can touch it, or do you take a second? And I literally was like, it feels like, what did I say? We haven't scratched the surface yet. So I totally think about it 0 at any level, but it's also because I love the game. Not necessarily like I want the bank account to be bigger. I still have, don't get me wrong. I mean, what do you ask me? Every time she sees me, she asks me, but who takes care of the money at your company? Every time, don't you? She's always like, but who's the CFO? Who's in charge of making sure you don't run out of money? Because if you didn't grow up with any money, that's like deep inside all of us. We're just like, but who's in charge, and are they stealing from us? Yeah. And the answer is like, yeah, people are going to steal from you at some point. That is true. And it'll also be fine, and you'll keep going. But yeah, I agree. I don't think there's ever enough. But if you can flip it to stop talking about the dollar amount and start talking about like, it's never enough because I just want to see what am I capable of. Like, I want to die having squeezed every last drop out of me. That's when I think it starts to get fun.
100%.
You've seen the rarest of things, which is you lost it all.
Yeah.
And I think that is off. How many people here are almost more scared of people knowing that you lost it all and like seeing the flame out than actually not having the cash? Who else? I see a lot of nodding.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is what scares us. But you're a perfect example of like, I was there. Nobody fucking cared, and I'm fine.
No one cares.
That's wild.
Like, no one cares. And it is true that saying that the people who do care don't matter, and the people that matter, do care.
Wait, can I ask you a question? Did you have a very dark moment then when you were like, I lost everything. This is how I defined myself. Who am I?
Yeah. You want to go there?
Okay. Just in front of our 20 new best friends.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I wrote about it in my book. So this is the moment. So become a millionaire. I buy all these things. I got to start off with the arrogance I had. I bought a Land Rover, a BMW, and a Dodge Viper, all within 4 hours on the same day. Thanks for laughing. Right? And I thought, and the Viper was because in college, I saw the Viper. I said, when I arrive one day, I'll get it. I got this place out in Hawaii for a sabbatical. I joined a club. I also started investing. I invest in a whole different way now. I used to do basically private equity, putting in, but small tranches, angel, 50, 100, 200, all these different businesses. And this arrogant dick it was like, oh, it doesn't matter if you're here, Cody. Mike's here. Here's the money. We have me. I have the Midas touch. I believed my own story. And there is, I looked up in the Webster Dictionary, there is a word for someone who has arrogance and ignorance. The word is dick. It's true. It is true. I was a total dick. And the Dodge Viper is like the winning trophy for dicks. Like, I, within 2 years, evaporated all that wealth. I lost every penny, Cody. And I'll never forget, my accountant calls me. It was February 14th, 2008, Valentine's Day. And he says, Mike, you have to declare bankruptcy. I didn't have enough money to pay my tax bill that year, and it wasn't even a tax bill. I came home. I have 3 children. My wife and my kids had prepared a meal, and I was sobbing when I came home. And that's when I told them what happened. I lost everything. Now, I'd been lying to my family by omission. My wife was like, how's business? And I saw my bank account. I don't know if you've been there. You see it dwindling. So logically, I saw it, but emotionally, I wasn't ready to accept it. I'm like, that one client's coming. So my wife would say, how's things going? I'm like, it's fine. It's good. But I had to face it. We lost our house 30 days later. We liquidated all our assets. The cars were gone. Viper was gone, thank God. Everything's gone. But this was the moment, and I'll probably start crying, so I gotta go quick. My daughter asked me, she goes, Daddy, she was 9, can I still go to horseback riding lessons? Now, to give you context, it was $20 for a group of like 10 kids, and they ride around for a half hour. And I said, I'm so sorry, we don't have anything. And as I said that, she got up and she ran as fast as she could into her room, and I hear the door slam, and I'm sobbing. I'm like, oh my God, you and I, and we define ourselves as providers. We are here to provide for ourselves, our family, our community, our globe. And I'm like, my one effing job, I can't do it. My daughter is so scared, she ran away from me. And as I'm saying that, I hear someone going, the door comes swinging open, and she comes running down with those gangly legs, and she has a piggy bank in her hand. And she goes, Daddy, Daddy. She goes, I'll pay our bills. I was so embarrassed of that day. And you know, there's a saying about rock bottom. As difficult as it is, at least there's only one way to go, which is up, right? It's a beautiful saying. It's total bullshit. It's total bullshit. You hit the bottom, you get dragged along the floor of self-disdain and hatred. I'm like, I'm a scumbag. And I went through 2 years of depression, self-diagnosed. I never went to a therapist. Do now. You should. Drank a lot. I don't now. But in reflection, it's the greatest moment of my life because I said, I'm going to fix this. Your traumas, whatever they may be, my traumas, our traumas often are the biggest opportunity. I'm on a path. I'm committed to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty because I know how visceral it is. I know how freaking bad it is. I am committed to make every entrepreneur I come in contact with as profitable as possible. Because honestly, I need to learn that for myself. What we teach is what we need to learn. And so I'm just putting it out there, putting it out there, putting it out there. I'm not great with money. I'm better. But God, I'm never going to stop teaching it.
I love that. How many of you guys resonate with that? You've had, yeah. I mean, my dad calls it the head in the hands in the dark with no idea what to do moment. And I've had one too.
What was yours?
Mine was the same thing. A company was almost out of cash that we had, and I didn't tell anybody. And mine was like really, it was almost so fast. It was like a cancer diagnosis where you die the next 30 days. Like, I didn't know. I didn't really have the slow burn. We had made a terrible mistake in a business. And it's often, I think mistakes are usually who's, not how's. Yeah. And so I had trusted somebody, and that was my fault. And I had let them have too much control over one of these businesses. And the way that they had reported it had not really anticipated some expenses we were going to have, and also that we would have seasonality in the business. And I was so embarrassed about it that I called him in the middle of the night, and he said 2 things to me. He said, one, when we step on a nail at a construction site, we don't ask how we got there, what happened, what's going on, do I take a bubble bath so I feel better? We pull out the fucking nail. And so he goes, you're gonna do the hard thing. You're gonna do the hard thing right now, which is you're gonna look at your business, and that's why I obsess for all of you guys on making sure that when you are in that poverty center, how do we get out of it immediately? How do we, fuck the emotions, fuck the feelings, we pull out the nail. You don't wonder how the nail got there. You fix the safety issues later, you wear better boots the next time. And so he did a really good job of snapping me out of it, of saying, instead of staying here worrying about it, which is why I'm always saying to you guys, money really likes speed. He basically was like, why would you worry about this one more second? You're not going to sleep anyway tonight. Stay up. Stay up. Let's look at the books. Let's fix this. And what I've found in investing in hundreds of businesses now it's almost always fixable, to your point. Almost always. But the reason it won't be is because you don't move fast enough, you don't have people who have been there before around you, and you don't focus on profit. You focus on what is gonna look good, what is gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you gotta do the really awful thing, which is rip off the Band-Aid. But I'm so glad you talked about that, because one of our missions here is, we've looked a lot at the data surrounding small business, and most small businesses fail. That is true. Most of them do. Nobody talks about it. Most of them do. And a lot of the reason why, I think, is due to not having systems of control for situations in which emotion gets high. You have a ton of systems and stories and ways that you kind of are honest about yourself. You keep yourself in your, I'll call it your bumper lanes, because you know that you have self-awareness to be like, I'm not the best with money. The people that get in trouble are the ones that think they're the best with it, right? And so I want to talk about a couple of things. You can kind of pick which one. I want to talk about either the pumpkin plan, or I want to talk about clockwork, or I want to talk about beacon. Do any of those speak to you in this?
Yeah, they do. So I'd say pumpkin plan to start. What I did, just to give context, that's one of the books I wrote. And it's the runner-up to Profit First in popularity. What I did was I hired a business coach before business coaches really existed. This is back in the 90s. And he came into my business and said, day one, we're going to go to a pumpkin field. I'm like, what? He's like, you got to understand biology, because there's this thing called biomimicry. And when you study what Mother Nature's figured out, she's pretty freaking smart and she spent a lot of time figuring things out. You can copy those strategies, and usually they have a better success rate than something that's artificially engineered. So I went to a pumpkin farm and I studied colossal pumpkin farming. And sure enough, it works for business too. So that's the context.
Talk about why and what you got from it.
Yeah, so there was a few things. The first one was, it's called seed selection. And basically, to have a successful business, there's an intersection, it's like a Venn diagram of 3 key elements you have to nail, and the likelihood of growing is much greater than otherwise. Most entrepreneurs simply say, I'm doing this because this is my historical vocation, I have some experience, I'm gonna do it, or I heard you can make a lot of money doing it. And I don't know if either of those are actually necessarily good. The first thing that we ask, and I ask myself, is do I have something that's truly distinct in the industry? Can you redefine the industry? I'll give you a personal example. Who's heard of the Savannah Bananas here? Okay, they're exploding, right? So Jesse Cole is a friend from before, right when the Savannah Bananas were starting, and they used Profit First. I went down and coached the organization. What he did was say, what is the industry doing currently and sucks about it? He said, I don't know if any of you know this, but baseball is boring. It's boring. So he's like, that sucks. And he went through all these different things. So the first thing he said is, what are the things that people don't like? I'm gonna unsuck it. That sounded very, I don't know why it sounded so gross, but it did. So he and his wife, Emily, started to redefine baseball to make it not boring and to make it entertaining. The second thing is they put intentional constraints in place. So they used Profit First, which inherently means there's less money to spend. And one of my favorite things is he said, we don't have enough money for like a cheer squad or anything to entertain people. So he's like, what do you do when you have no money? He's like, you ask your fans. So he said, if you're 80 years or older, and you're a woman, you're on our cheer squad, and teeth are optional. And it's true for half the squad. I met the squad, and they're the Nana Bananas. And people lose their effing minds. Like, we lose our minds watching this. So what makes you truly unique, better than the competition, is not noticeable. You answer the phone in 2 rings, I answer in 1. I'm technically better. The customer won't notice. You run a standard baseball game, I have a grandma banana to answer around, I win. You gotta be different. Secondly is you have to have client demand for it. So I could do something very different. I could be your first guest that comes dressed like Bozo the Clown, waka waka. I come in with my big floppy shoes. Everyone will notice it's different, but is there demand for a weirdo that does that? Maybe not, and now I've compromised myself. So who's the customer that wants that? And it's not your standard baseball fan. They're not there for the winning game, they're there for the winning experience. So he's redefined the customer. And the last part is, to your earlier point, is systemization. And most people don't understand what systemization is. Systemization is where you can attract prospects, convert them to customers, collect revenue, have them raving about the experience, all while you're sleeping, without any of your active input. With the entrepreneur not doing any of that, now you have a systemized business. And so what I learned from the pumpkin plan is that's the seed. And just like growing a colossal pumpkin, you need a seed that matches the environment, the soil content, the climate. You need a seed that matches up with those 3 elements.
Some of the greatest businesses start as nothing more than a notebook full of scribbles. But ideas aren't enough. They need execution. With GoDaddy Aero, execution is fast. A few prompts and you get a website, logo, email, and even social content. Minutes, not months. You go from scribbles on a paper to a polished online business you can actually grow. So stop waiting, stop overthinking, launch your business today with GoDaddy Aero. Head to godaddy.com/Codie Sanchez and see what's possible there. By the way, this live episode, if you guys liked it, if you want more, well, I have a live event. I only do one a year. It's huge. How big? Really big. In Austin, Texas, just for people who want to make more money, buy businesses, build businesses. It's called Main Street over Wall Street. So if you liked this episode, you're probably going to want to be there. There's only a couple hundred spots left. So click below. I want to shake your hand in person in Austin, Texas, or go to msows.com. MSOWS. We'll see you there. So let's say that somebody doesn't have their, I believe you call it their prize pumpkin. Let's say that they don't have this differentiator, this unique component. What do you tell them to do? How do people start thinking about that?
Dude, I don't know why I called you dude. Is that cool?
I love dude.
All right,
yes.
Dude. I called my friends dude, so I didn't even
That's
know.
Great. Me
Subconsciously, you just qualified. So dude, this is what you gotta do. I got a magical Jedi mind trick question. I actually got 2 that will blow your mind away. And it's not what you think. That's how Jedis roll. First question, ask your best customers, those ones we identified, what am I doing right? Now here's why this is a Jedi mind trick. They will not tell you what you're doing right. So I used to work with hedge funds. They were one of my first company. We did technical services for hedge funds. They had Bloomberg's and ILX and all these different systems. I went to my best customer, Appaloosa Management. I said, what am I doing right? And they said, you respond very quickly. Now, this is in the 90s. They said the typical computer guy was taking like a full day to get on site when our system went down. They got backup systems, but you get on site within 4 hours. Now, here's the Jedi part. When your customer tells you you're doing right, they don't tell you what you're doing right. They tell you how they're judging you, what they're observing. You and I you do thousands of things for your customer. Your customer does not see the 1,000 things. They see 1 or 2 things. So when you ask them what I'm doing right, they tell you the thing they see. So when my client said, you respond quickly, I said, holy crap, I'm not responding fast enough. Because that's what he's measuring. So I figured out a way, it was real simple, dispatch one of my technicians or myself to be within a half-hour radius of Appaloosa Management, and anytime he had a problem, I would leave my other clients, I have an emergency with my number 1 client, Dollar General, get there, and I was getting on site within a half hour. Within a month, he's like, I don't know what you're doing, dude, but it has blown my mind. Like, the service level has skyrocketed. He's like, we're telling everyone about it. So trick 1 is what I'm doing right is actually what you need to do better. Trick 2 is what am I doing wrong? But here's a Jedi mind trick. Don't ask what you're doing wrong because people lie to each other, social consequence. Ask what is wrong with my industry. It's the person outside the room. So when I leave here, you can have a candid conversation like, oh, Mike was not that good. He spoke a little quickly and he did a lispy thing that didn't work. Like whatever, you can say what you want. But to my face, you're like, oh, you were great. Good tips, Mike. You can't tell me the truth to my face only when I leave. So have the conversation about the person outside the room, the general industry. So I said, what's wrong with the computer industry? This is when you remember you don't remember the Palm Pilot, you're way too young. Do anyone remember the Palm Pilot? Okay, you're over 50. Over 50. No, you're not over 50. If you don't know what the Palm Pilot was, it was the first smartphone that was neither smart nor a phone. That's basically it, right? It was the weirdest thing. And he said, my computer company, my last guy, tried to repair the Palm Pilot, and he charged me more than just replacing it. I wish there was fixed billing. We moved to fixed billing in the early 2000s when MSPs only moved to it in the 2015s or so. So what am I doing wrong is your opportunity to, what's the industry doing wrong is your opportunity to differentiate from the industry.
That's so good.
I got fired up there.
It's good. I mean, it is amazing how the right questions serve you so much better than the immediate answers. It's because you can just rinse and repeat. One of my pet peeves at our companies is we send a lot of surveys. I hate surveys. So I have like how many of you guys get a survey? You're like, thank God that came out. I needed more things to respond to in my email inbox. It's my huge pet peeve. I'm always like, instead, we should actually, I'm curious on that. I'm like, we should actually try to sell people more things. And the reason why is because then you actually know what they want. And if you sell something and nobody wants it, you're like, oh, that's the survey.
That is
the money's
gold.
The survey.
That is gold.
Right?
So I remember.
Do entrepreneurs sell enough to their customers? Are most entrepreneurs scared of selling?
They absolutely do not sell enough, and they don't sell the right way. I actually believe MVPs are not the right way to sell. So an MVP is a minimum viable product. I think that's too far advanced. We do a technique we call sell to tell. What we do is say, I was a co-owner in a manufacturing business for a while. We made leather products, sheaths specifically for knives. And instead of making a prototype and seeing what was out there, we simply announced to our audience, we're thinking about making a sheath and it's going to have this feature and that feature. Are you interested in buying it? But we asked the most important question. If you are, put down a deposit now. People speak the truth through their wallets. I was actually thinking about doing a conference at my old high school, but to pull it off, we needed 250 people there. Reached out to our audience. We had 75 people put a deposit down, and we said, no, this isn't going to go, and refunded their deposits. Ironically, prior to that, our marketing team said, well, why don't we just ask? We had over 1,000 people say, oh, I'm in. That's amazing. And if we acted on that, we would have blown money and embarrassed myself at my old high school.
I'm always scared people aren't going to show up for my parties.
Oh, cool. Rock and roll.
Literally every time. Still, it never stops. Okay, so you sell to tell, which I love.
Yeah.
Do you have any good frameworks for how to know if you are selling enough as an entrepreneur? It's one of my beliefs that most entrepreneurs are too scared to sell, and so they don't do it frequently enough. How do you know if you're selling enough?
The act of selling as opposed to the dollar number.
100%.
Yeah.
Are we asking our customers for enough things? Are we asking for enough upsells? Are we? What is our relation between content and actual conversion?
Yeah, I think the two indicators is if you have customers come back to you and say, please stop that, that's a good indicator, and listen up, particularly your quality clients. Often we listen to the one naysayer who doesn't matter, like, you sell so much, you totally suck, and they've never bought from you, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll never sell again. So listen to your best customers. Secondly is if you see every time you sell a decline in purchasing, and I've seen that before, that someone sells so much, people are like, you know what, I'm just turned off to you. All you do is sell. I think we have to care for our customers at an amplitude of a 5 to 1, maybe a 10 to 1. Just acts of service, caring for them, educating them, entertaining them, because that builds reciprocity, and then the sell becomes obvious. But I think particularly small businesses serve at like 100 to 0. Like all they're doing is like, I love my community, I'll do anything for them, and they don't monetize it. I would say, Cody, your customers, people in this room, my customers, not in this room, maybe, want us to be profitable. And your clients want you to be profitable. In fact, it's the number one customer, number one person in your life that wants you to be profitable is not you, it's actually your customer. And we don't believe that. Could you imagine, you go see your doctor, you have a heart situation, you rush in, Dr. 1 comes out and she says, here's the situation, I'm not profitable. I'm nearly broke. I'm really panicked for money. I'm just selling anything to anyone, and I've decided to generalize. I'm going to do neurosurgery, pediatrics, geriatrics, anything with an actix, I'm in. Dr. 2 comes out and she says, I am wickedly profitable. I make a boatload of money because I am wildly successful at what I do. In fact, all I do is serve this one situation. Which doctor are you going to pick? Dr. 2. You want your doctor to be profitable. And listen, maybe you're not providing life-saving services. You're providing life-altering services. Your customers want to know that you're profitable because then you treat them as the number one customer. They won't say, hey, can you charge me more? Can you rip me off a little? But they will say, I want your undivided attention. I want the best of you. And all those things are indicators of I want you to be profitable. I see you.
Well, it's such a good point. I mean, I don't know if anybody else feels like Mark Zuckerberg knows their purchasing pattern better than their husband does, but like Mark's got me on Instagram. Those ads come up, I want to buy. But if I go to double click on a shirt or an outfit, and the cost of that shirt or outfit is like $7.99, I don't buy. Why? Because I think the quality is going to be bad, because I think it's not actually going to be a good service. So not only do I think we don't sell enough, I think we price ourselves out of deals all the time because we're the cheapest, because we're like, oh, no, I want to overserve the customer. No, you lost my business because I don't trust that it could be quality at that price. And so I want to talk a little bit. You have multiple.
Can I add to that real quick?
Yeah, that's what I want you to do.
So I would buy that $7 shirt. And I think what's important about that is you have to bifurcate your customers. A large majority of customers are the cheapo customers. And that's me in that situation. But you care about the quality of your clothing, and therefore you're going to pay a premium. Now, I play guitar. I bet you if I saw a $1,000 guitar, I might buy it. I don't know if you play guitar. Do you? Okay. So you'll buy the $7 guitar, I suspect. And what price dictates is the quality of customer. You will find customers at the lower price point. And for anyone here that sells at a low price point, if you ever found that your customers are really bitchy and moany and they really suck, it's because you're attracting the shit customer, the one who says, I don't really care about this, I just need a shirt, so I'll pay the $7. And that's why I think we need to have a higher price. We get a higher value customer that's more vested in the outcome, and they're actually a higher quality customer.
What do you think about, I tend to think that when you solve rich people's problems, they pay more and they appreciate it more, by and large. And when you're a junior entrepreneur, or not even junior, when you're not the best entrepreneur in the world, I almost like solving more luxury problems because there's more margin in them typically, and you don't have to get as many, so it doesn't have to be such a volume game until you're good. Do you think that's true, or do you think when you go and serve luxury customers, you better be luxury, you better be top tier, you better be great?
Great. That's a good question. I think the quantity game is really difficult to compete in because you only become profitable when you can handle that volume, which means exacting systems. That's why Walmart's so good. But they have to demand from their providers that it has to arrive at 10:30 and there has to be a SKU at a certain point. Small businesses, we don't have the resources typically to pull that off, so that's very difficult. When it comes to quality I think is misunderstood. Quality, I think we hear that and we say, well, it's a special fabric or it's something that's really of long-lasting value. But quality simply means distinct. I'll give you an example. My youngest son, this is like a bad father moment. When he was 6 years old, I wanted to show him what devotion and commitment was, and it was the Olympics. It was like the Beijing Olympics. Michael Phelps wins like gold number 1 billion. And in this particular race, I don't know if you all remember, he was actually in 3rd place, and he's swimming like super hard, and there's like 3 meters to go. He's in 2nd place. There's a meter to go, and the person in the lead, I think from the Ukraine, is reaching out to touch the wall, and Phelps jumps out of the water like a shark and slaps the wall. And there's like this long pause, and it pops up, and Michael Phelps won by 0.001 seconds. And I jump up, I'm watching my son, I'm like, Jake, that's the world's best. That's how you do it. Total commitment, total devotion. That's the highest level performer. And he looks at me, he goes, but Daddy, Michael Phelps isn't the world's best. Jimmy Mickeldorf is. Now, here's the bad dad moment. I said, who the fuck's Jimmy Mickeldorf? I never heard of it. He's like, Daddy, he's in kindergarten. Never say it to your kids, by the way. He goes, Daddy, Jimmy's in my kindergarten class. He can swim across Mountain Lake. It's the lake near us. And he's like, he's the only kid in the world that can do it. I was like, oh my gosh. So the context of the best and quality is the context of the consumer's world. For me, it's the Olympic stage. For him, it's his kindergarten class. And Susie can make the biggest cannonball. She's a rock star for him. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. So when it comes to quality, I just ask, we have to know who our customer is. And what can we do that's unique and distinct to them they never experienced before? And now you've introduced quality.
That's so good. Let's talk about distraction a little bit. You have a lot in multiple of your books. I think I'm referencing the pumpkin plan more here, but how do you personally decide when to double down on an idea versus when to call it a distraction and cut it?
Yeah. So we generally look at a revenue threshold because that's just a shocking metric to many small businesses. We generally say if you're not generating $10 million doing your one thing, you haven't arrived yet, you're not good enough yet. For most businesses, that's about 0.001% of the market cap. So it's nothing. Yet most businesses said, oh, we're doing $300,000 in revenue. I should diversify and do more things. And it starts diluting you. It's all about the efficiency game. That's where we focus. The second thing is we just do diagnostics with AI. It's so easy now. Just look at the customer base, what they're consuming, what's the profitability per product, and we just focus in on those few things. I think businesses pursue diversification too quickly because we hear if you're diversified, you're safe, you're protected, but it also stalls growth.
Do you think entrepreneurs should ever have multiple businesses before they do $10 million in revenue?
If I say no, I'm a hypocrite. So I have many businesses that aren't doing $10 million, but I don't run them. So I think people misunderstand what a business owner is. In fact, when people ask me, what do you do? In addition to author, I don't say I'm an entrepreneur, even though it's my favorite word, because entrepreneurs become so bastardized. There's pundits that say, oh, entrepreneurship's hustle and grind. It's, work your ass off. That is not what entrepreneurship is. You were sharing something that I hope people took notes down. 6%, you said, of the world population runs a business. I'll give you the data behind this because I'm really into the numbers. 17% of the population ever attempts to start a business. So if you think about kindergarten and the 20 kids in your class, 3 kids, maybe 4 kids ever attempt to start a business. 20% ever start a business and after 5 years are doing it on a profitable, sustainable basis. That's 3%. So the 6% who are running a business, half of them are actually pulling it off after 5 years. And that's how the math works. Which means if you ever thought about who was the weirdo in your kindergarten class, it was you. You're a weirdo. For some messed up part of your mind is like, oh, I can start a business and make money. The number one job of an entrepreneur is not to do the job. The number one job of an entrepreneur is to create jobs for the other kids in your class. 19 kids in your kindergarten class want good jobs with good companies to live a good life with just good experiences. If you are doing the work in your business, you're failing the responsibility of an entrepreneur. Your job, my job, our job is to create jobs for the other 97% of the global population. Yet most entrepreneurs are doing the work. So, let me get off my soapbox for a second. I don't call myself an entrepreneur anymore because unfortunately, we're told that means to work in our business. I call myself a shareholder because I also own public stock and I'm a shareholder in my business. And when someone says, what are you? I say I'm a shareholder of small business. They're like, what does that mean? I'm like, oh, I own the stock. I share in the profit and I give strategic direction. I vote. But I don't do any of the work in the business. So for every one of the companies, we have a president, we have a C-suite, if you will, and these are some small businesses. A C-suite could be like 6 people in the entire company, but I am not in the business doing the work.
So cool. Let's talk about beacons. So you referenced a study about football fields and blindfolds, but how do you stay on course in a business and not get distracted?
So the study, this is my book actually called Fix This Next. What I found is most entrepreneurs are reactionary. And there was a study of a woman named Amanda Eller from the state of Hawaii back maybe 10 years ago. And it's a common story. She was just a unique global phenomena. She went for a hike on a path she always does. Halfway through a hike, it was like a 5-mile hike, she sees a fallen tree and she decides to sit down and meditate. She comes out of her meditation, she picks a path, the key variable being a path, starts walking. She's like, oh God, I'm disoriented, I'm not in the right spot. 17 days later, she's found clinging to life by a rescue crew. What's interesting about the story is she was a half mile from her car. She started walking in circles. Without a beacon, this happens over and over, people get lost. In this German study, they took people on a football field and they put like a sleep mask on them and said, find your way across. No one could do it. And it wasn't the long way, it was the distance like halfway across the field, which is only 50 yards, and they couldn't do it. Most entrepreneurs operate their business this way. It's very reactionary. It's like, oh, my instinct says go here, my instinct says go there, and we're totally blinded. So we have to pick a beacon of what the business needs. The typical beacon is this. The most common missed part in businesses is, are you profitable on a daily basis? At the end of today, Saturday, are you gonna walk out of here and your business made more money than it spent? And tomorrow, does it make more money than it spent? Most entrepreneurs don't focus on that at all. They simply say, I need to sell more. And they actually dig a hole further. So the number one beacon is sustainable daily profitability. The second beacon after that, once you nail your profitability, you can use profit first to do that. Number 2 is efficiency. And I'll give you the hack to efficiency that most people don't do. Most people say, oh, I gotta learn how to delegate. Question, who here has a personal assistant? Raise your hand, live audience. Okay, hands down. Hands down. Who does not have a personal assistant? Okay, keep your hands up. You are the personal assistant. If your hand is up right now. It is the biggest flaw in small business. Everyone that just raised your hand, hire a personal assistant stat. And they don't have to be full-time. They can work 1 hour a month. And it's not to have someone doing work for you. It's so you can learn how to delegate to other people. It is the biggest weakness most entrepreneurs have, is the ability to delegate. Second tip, most people delegate the wrong thing. What don't I like to do? I don't like doing this, I'm gonna delegate it. Wrong. What do you love to do so much you'll never give it up? Delegate that. Because when you can delegate your passion, you'll learn to delegate the entirety of your business.
Love that. Yeah, I mean, Zach, you know what one of the first things we do in the boardroom is, which is yell at you guys to get VAs, right? He's nodding his head, yes. And that is because you're right. Otherwise, that means you do not value your time more than minimum wage offshore labor. And like, you got to look at yourself in the face and think about that for a second. You are saying your time is not worth more than a couple of dollars per hour. And if that is true, then are you really a business owner? And I think the answer to that is no, you're an employee. You're still an employee status. And one of the first things we do in our groups is say, let's offload some of these. Let's kill the zombies, let's cut the weight, and let's offload the things that you should never be doing in the first place. And now there are incredible systems to do that. And we'll talk about that later today as well, as Zach knows. Okay, I want to talk about, let's talk about profit first. Many people think revenue minus expenses equal profit, and profit is the last part of the equation in business. You famously argue the opposite. Let's talk about what the profit first framework is.
So after struggling with my own finances, I looked at my businesses historically, and while they grew, and I did sell 2 businesses, they were never profitable. And so they were strategic acquisitions. I was lucky to get out. Most people will never sell their business. So I ran the data. There was a study from the SBA in conjunction with a major bank. They identified 83% of small businesses in the US, there's 36 million of us now, under 25 million in revenue are considered a small business. So it's probably the majority of this room. 83% of us are surviving check by check. And probably everyone in this room, in part, started your business for financial freedom. So I'm like, oh, we started our business for financial freedom, but no one pulls it off. What's wrong with us? And then I was looking at the formula one day, I said, holy crap, that formula is wrong. It makes logical sense. Sales or revenue, you subtract expenses, what's left over is profit. Totally makes sense. It does not make behavioral sense. It is human nature. What comes first gets done. What comes last gets ignored. The manana syndrome. We are told profit comes last. It's the bottom line last. It's the year end last. It's all last. And so most business owners, and how I ran my business, I'd wait till the end of the year. I'm like, shucks. I wouldn't use the word shucks, but your mom's here. I'm like, shucks. I could never swear in front of my own mom, but I'm F-bombing here. I would go, shucks, I don't have any profitability. Maybe next year. And that was the fundamental flaw. Once I took my profit first, I started becoming profitable every day. It's the pay yourself first principle applied to business. And this goes back to biblical times. It's like nothing new. In the Bible, they talk about tithing and the necessity of putting money aside. It's been modernized in tons of personal finances. We're told to have a 401k, pay yourself first. And yet in a business, we don't do it. So it's literally that simple. And it ain't a shell game. It leverages, into behavioral principles, a thing called Parkinson's law. Parkinson states that our demand for a resource expands as the resource expands. The more time you have to do something, the longer it'll take. The more cookies that are served as a dessert, the more you're gonna eat. Guilty. And the more money you make in your business, the more you will spend. As your revenue goes like this over time, I bet your expenses increase at the uncanny same rate. It's because how we're behaviorally wired. So what we're gonna do is starting today, every time sales comes in, like today, take a percentage. You wanna have 10% bottom line? Take 10%. 20, great, take 20%. Take that profit, hide it from your business, and now your business tells you what's available to run your business. What I say is profit first doesn't fix your business, it tells you what needs to be fixed within your business. Because if you want that profit number, it'll tell you you don't have enough, your prices are wrong, you gotta fix your margins, inefficient, over costs, all that stuff.
I love that. We'll do an activity, I think, later today that talks about, like, we like to have people actually think about where in your business can you cut costs immediately. Yeah. It's like, what am I, because it's hard to make new sales, right? You're like, yeah, I'd love to go right now, close a bunch of new business, go out there, execute on it. Can be hard.
Yeah.
You don't always have control over that immediately, but somewhere in your business is sitting some cash. And so we have a process, Carter's really good at this, where we go through and analyze again and again, where in your business do you have hidden money? And it's not the sexiest of things, because nobody's like, I saved $1,000 today.
Yeah.
You're like, I closed a bunch of new clients. That's way sexier. Yeah. Who gets paid the most? Salespeople. Who gets paid the least? Accountants. And yet, accountants are more consistent. And so I really like this.
That's brilliant. There's a little hack you can do.
Let's do it.
Get a credit card, a new credit card. This sounds crazy, for your business. You can do it in your personal finances too. Move all your subscriptions to that one card and get paper statements. I did my personal finances. I'm like, I probably spend, a couple $100 maybe on subscriptions. Holy crap, I spent 500. I got like the Hydro system. I got the Peloton. I've got Netflix. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm not using half this stuff. You got to make it visceral and you got to make it conscious as opposed to subconscious. In your business, set up a dedicated card just for your subscriptions and you'll see how much you're spending. It's the first way to get control of that stuff.
I love that. Yeah, and I want to open it up from questions here at the end. So think about it for a second. Have your questions kind of ready. The other thing I think we don't think about enough as business owners is investing in ourselves.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds a little cheesy because it's so much easier to say, I invested in the business here. I hired a new person. But I found that if we don't become better, our business never gets better. And so I'm curious, you've been in the sort of educational business for a long time. Do you still have coaches and mentors. How do you think about investing in yourself as the entrepreneur and getting better? Is that important to you?
Yeah. So wickedly important. Surprise. What I do is identified what is the role that I enjoy the most, meaning gives me the most joy. But first I had to eradicate myself from doing it. So let me explain. I get the most joy from being a spokesperson for my brand. Okay. I realize that requires a lot of public speaking. And I realize if I'm the only person doing it, I become the linchpin for my business. So first I educated about 50 people on speaking on Profit First. In fact, there's like 3 Profit First keynotes going on today, and I'm not doing any of them. So that's the first thing. So I'm not necessary. Then I said, okay, well, I own the business and I want to do what gives me joy. I'm not going to sit on the beach and stuff. So I'm going to reinsert myself and I want to be the best spokesperson I can. So I go to improv classes. I study comedy. I look at what do my contemporaries do, and most people sit behind a dais and like I'm like, that's the one thing I can't do. I have to be different. So I study theatrics, performance, all those things constantly. I have a speaking coach who comes to my events and critiques me sometimes live. Like he'll be doing signals. He'll sit in the front row. He's like, doing like we have these hand signals. Like, oh gosh, hands out of your pocket. Named John Bates. So I very much invest in that. I think for any of us, it's just human nature. We can be super elite at very few things, but pick that thing, and then you become the Michael Phelps or the Jimmy Mickeldorf of your category.
Well, it's
now you all know Jimmy Mickeldorf.
No, poor Jimmy.
Dude,
I wonder
poor
where
Jimmy.
he is today.
I know.
You know.
He's like 20 years old now. He's never had a girlfriend as a result because of me.
I love that. Thank you. I think a lot of times we need to give ourselves permission to spend time getting better, because it feels like there's too many things to do every single day, and it might even feel like a little bit of a luxury. And I'm a big believer that, if we don't spend money becoming the best CEO we can be, then how can we hire the best talent who can then be talking on other stages, who can then be growing the business? Like, you cannot attract what you are not. And so I think you have to keep becoming better if you want to attract better people. Okay, yes. I have one last question that I'm going to open it up for you guys. You often talk about building a business that runs without you. What's the first system every owner should put in place?
Oh, we do with every business we invest in. We immediately schedule a 4-week vacation for the business owner within 1 year of today. And I challenge you right now, in your calendar, put a 4-week vacation. That's 1 month away from the office. Tell your loved one you're going on vacation with them, perhaps. Tell your kids. They're the ultimate accountability mechanism. And if the thought of that gives you a heart attack, and when most business owners it does, that's the first indicator we do not have a systemized business. If you can extract yourself from a business for 4 consecutive weeks, we actually turn off your email, full shutdown. It changes the mindset from how am I going to be the superhero again today to how am I going to get the business operating without me? And that's what we do. That's the first thing.
At what level of revenue or existence of a business do you put this into place?
We've done like a $100,000 business. And it's like, how can you do with that? It's a one-person business. Even if you're a one-person business, you have vendors, maybe you're not employees, you have clients, you can make your clients work for you. I grew up back in the day where you had catalogs and you want to order that nice expensive shirt of yours, you call up and the operator would be like, oh, what's your address? And you say, it's 12 Main Street. And you're like, what was that? Vane Street? No. Now they have customers doing the work. We actually go on the web and like, click, 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 12 Main Street, ha, ha, ha. Like, we think it's cool entering the data for them. So you can actually train your customers to do the work for you. Your doctor, your GP has you fill out this ridiculously long form for you. You're doing the work. I'm like, this is amazing. So even if you're $100,000, you can do it.
You can be the smartest person in the room and still sound dumb and lose the room entirely because of the way you speak. And I should know because I have had it happen to me too. So today I am breaking down the speaking patterns that quietly sabotage us, especially high achievers, from founders and CEOs to everyday humans just tired of not getting heard. And once you know these, you'll start noticing them everywhere. I'm Codie Sanchez, and this is the Big Deal Podcast. This is how you get attention like a CEO. All right, let's go to trap number 1, excessive hedging. People ignore everything you say before the word but. Did you know that? So if you say, I could be totally off here, but, and then you drop a perfectly solid point, neuroscience finds you're going to get ignored. And this is actually, there's a word for this. It's called linguistic hedging, and it's killing your competency score. So every single human, immediately when we meet another one, gets graded on two things mainly, warmth and competency. If you want to be listened to, you better be competent, even above being warm in the world of business. So the research on linguistic hedging shows that excessive qualifiers reduce perceived competence and authority, especially in high status environments. To say that in English, if you use but, I don't know, maybe, could be, I'm not sure, prepared to be pushed around like a rag doll, even when the content quality of what you say is unchanged. So you could be saying really smart things, but you're going to be tossed. There's this classic persuasion finding where speakers who presented arguments confidently were rated as more credible. Okay, that kind of makes sense, even when their arguments were identical to more hesitant versions. But a really scary study, they did a follow-on study that showed people who argued more confidently but were wrong were rated even more credible than those who argued not confidently but were right. So confidence is actually a heuristic. People don't consciously score your logic, they score your certainty. So why do smart people do this then? Why do we hedge? Because you're aware of the complexity. You and I both know reality is kind of probabilistic. And, so we hedge. You don't want to sound like some sort of sycophant out there saying, everyone should do this. You always do this. This never works, because that's not realistic. But the problem, do you want to win or do you want to be right? And now here's some important nuance. Hedging isn't always bad, but it largely is. I mean, there's something called strategic hedging, which signals, hey, I'm intellectually honest. But most hedging you're doing is insecurity hedging, which signals I'm scared of being judged. Let's be honest. What are we usually doing? We're probably more scared of being judged than really strategically thinking about how to hedge. So let me show you the difference between the two. Let's say I think we should move forward with point A. However, we have to take into account that there is a 30% failure rate. If we do that, that could be an issue. As opposed to, I want to move forward with point A, but there's always a chance that it's not going to work. And I can't guarantee it 100%. Which one sounds more serious? Obviously the first one. I gave numbers. I stated things as opposed to questioning things. So here's the test. Are you adding nuance for clarity, or are you padding your statement to avoid social risk? Okay, so how do we fix this? How do we make you sound smart and people pay attention to you? Instead of saying, I might be wrong, but I think we should cut this feature, I want you to say, based on the data we have, cutting this feature is the right move. And if you want to be even better, say what the data is. Based on the data we have, we believe with a 70% probability, this is the right move. Give numbers and specifics. So this is the same thought, but just a slightly different posture. I want you to avoid excessive hedging because it's making people stop paying attention to you. Steve Jobs was famous for being the opposite of this. He'd have one sentence that tells you what to think. I call it his Twitter length headline. So he'd have one for the whole talk or product. So maybe like, today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. This is the world's thinnest notebook. An entire library of songs in your pocket, right? Everything else was proof of that one line, one idea repeated, no hedging. The second trap is over-explaining. Smart people love clarity and they hate being misunderstood. So they explain, then they clarify, then they get an example, then they restate the example, then they summarize the summary. Yikes. What happens? You signal one of two things. Your audience is either slow or you think your idea can't stand on its own, and neither is going to help your credibility. And there's nothing more infuriating to a competent person than having somebody over-explain an idea they already got on the first sentence. So if you really want to piss off somebody with ADD, OCD, and high competence, then explain yourself a lot. I hate to say it, this isn't PC, but ladies, we do this more than men. And we have to work on it if we want to be taken seriously. There's actual real research in cognitive psychology that has identified something called processing fluency. So when something is easy to understand, people judge it as more truthful and more intelligent. So ironically, over-explaining actually reduces your fluency. It makes simple things feel heavy. And you've seen this, like someone explains a concept for 5 minutes and you think, what is this guy talking about? Like the idea could be good, but the delivery, well, that makes everything else get tossed out the window. So what's the fix? I want you to deliver the core idea concisely. Pause. Let silence do the work. If someone wants more depth, they'll ask. Authority ends up trusting the listener. So let me give you an example. 2 explanations. Low fluency. Our vertically integrated infrastructure leverages synergistic distribution pathways to optimize cross-sector capital allocation. Don't we all know somebody who talks like that, by the way? That's low fluency. High fluency. We buy boring businesses that make money. Which one sounds smarter? Actually, the second one. Which one feels more trustworthy? Number 2. Which one gets remembered? Sure as hell, number 2. Because smart people take complex things and make it simple. And it's not about this cognitive load or using a bunch of vowels. Another fascinating study. If you look at stocks with easy names, researchers found that companies with the easiest to pronounce names, like car, outperformed those with hard to pronounce names like RDO. Naming actually matters. And in marketing, this is really true. This is why Apple ads work so well. Think about them. Simple background, minimal text, one product, clear headline. What do? That reduces your cognitive load. You don't have to think so hard. Your brain just goes, that makes sense, and it must be premium. And it makes, processing fluency basically makes simple look smart. And there's some dangerous sides to this. Like, it can make bad ideas look good. That's why scams use simple language and conspiracy theories spread wildly. It's why charismatic leaders will win. We all know one, right? You know one right now who is not as smart as you, not as good as you, but often wins because they're smoother. And so how do you use this ethically? If you want to sound more intelligent, we want shorter sentences. We want concrete nouns, no jargon, white space, speak slower, remove filter words. This is one of those ideas that quietly runs the world. So keep it stupid simple. Trap 3, talking too fast when it matters. Ever seen someone's pitch get higher? Their words speed up, their breath shortens. Why? Their nervous system is firing. When we're anxious, the sympathetic nervous system, it activates. That's like your heart rate rises, breathing shifts, speech accelerates. Listeners unconsciously interpret that speed as uncertainty. Even if actually you know what the fuck you're talking about, you just talk fast like I do. So studies on vocal perception show that slower, lower paced speech is actually associated with higher status and greater credibility. Now, you got to be careful here, because when you're talking to your boss, don't try to be profound. You want to make sure you are tied to the right timing. But when you rush your most important points, you subconsciously signal, I need to get through this before you reject it. What's the fix? When you reach your most important sentence, slow down by 20%. Add micro pauses. Breathe before the key line. For example, instead of saying, so what I'm saying is we should pivot the whole strategy because the data is clearly showing diminishing returns. Try, I think we should pivot. The data is showing diminishing returns. You can make everything fast up until then, but when you've got your plane to land, land it. I want you to remember the 3 S's. Shorter, slower, stronger. They use this on us in advertising. Like, listen to the speed of this part of the Apple speech. Think different. Here's to the crazy ones.
Here's to the crazy ones. The misfits. The rebels. The troublemakers. The round pegs in the square holes. The ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
They basically relaunched Apple's brand around creativity and nonconformity, but done really cleanly, slowly, and strategically. Trap 4, story, not specs. So I'm using Steve Jobs a lot in this because he's one of my favorite entrepreneurs, but also because he's one of the best of all time. And he is one of the best speakers ever, so we should steal his homework. And I think he followed a simple arc. Status quo to problem, to bold promise, to proof, to the future. So he would start with words like the world before, phones are clunky, laptops are heavy. Then he'd raise the stakes to make a clear promise, but in the future, you will hold all of the songs in your pocket. Then he would show the solution live. Bam, show, don't tell. Because People remember the story change, not the feature list. So you see, when you lead with ruthless simplicity, you can actually tell a story. Steed's slides and language were stripped down. Few words on screen, big visuals, almost no bullets. I want you to think of short, concrete phrases instead of jargon, like, it just works. Or once on stage, he's just said, gorgeous. Because the story was simple, the audience, they had the bandwidth to feel it in their brain. One of my favorites on Jobs was a speech that he gave on connecting dots at Stanford. And he has a couple lines I love. He's talking about when he does calligraphy and he learns computing and coding and he puts them together and he creates maybe the world's most valuable company. And he says, you have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference. Trap 5, being a show-off. This one hurts because it's actually hard for me. It's really tempting to play it cool. You should actually be a show-off. The people who win in life are not the ones in the shadows. They are the ones who actually demonstrate what they do. I was just on a podcast with Bill Gurley, one of the best investors of all time. And he told me something fascinating about the founder of WeWork, Adam Neumann. He said when he first met him in his Series A, so the company basically had nothing in existence. His company, Benchmark, had never done a real estate transaction. That's what this guy was asking him to do. But he goes, within the first few minutes, I knew I was going to invest in Adam and I was going to invest millions because he was such a showman. Think about who the president is right now, whether you like him or hate him. Donald Trump is a showman. Think about who's the richest man in the world right now, whether you like him or hate him. Elon Musk is a showman. So you actually need to flex. You know more than most people in the room. You've read the research. You understand the second order effects. You're smarter than you're giving yourself credit for. So flex it. I don't want you to reference obscure frameworks. I don't want you to add theoretical layers that aren't necessary because I want you to get recognized. But research on the illusion of explanatory depth and communication shows that the simpler you are, the more intelligent you are perceived. So the smartest communicators, they actually reduce complexity. They don't amplify it. Einstein supposedly said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Whether he said it or not, I think it's true. Smart, insecure speakers try to prove they're smart. Secure, smart speakers make everyone else feel smart. Think about that for a second. That's the power. So here's the fix. Go big and show, but default to the show being simple. Clarity beats cleverness every time. Trap 6, obsessive rehearsal. Most people think great speakers are born with it. They are not. They are the ones willing to rehearse more than is reasonable. Psychologist Anders Ericsson spent decades studying world-class performers like violinists, chess players, athletes, surgeons, all of it. And his conclusion, and uncomfortable for everyone who likes the idea of quote unquote talent, the main difference between the elite and the average wasn't who they were. It's how they practice. By age 20, the best violinists in his studies had put in more than 10,000 hours of focused practice. The merely good ones had about 4,000. Same instrument, same age, totally different outcomes. And later research really refined the picture. Practice isn't the only factor. Like deliberate practice. That explains roughly 1/5 to 1/4 of the performance gap between pros and amateurs. In other words, if you line up 100 people, a big part of why the top 5 look superhuman is they simply have done it more on purpose for longer. Public speaking, no different. Speaking well every day, no different. You know, the speakers who don't rehearse are the ones who ramble, run out of time, panic, and have a voice in their head telling them that they're not saying the right things coming out of their mouth. The ones who run the talk out loud multiple times, well, they're calm and clear, baby. So when you watch someone who seems effortlessly good on stage, you're actually seeing something else entirely. Hours of practice, hours of cutting out weak examples, hours of practicing the pause after the key line. So I don't want you to feel like you either have talent or you don't. You can make it. And if you want to see nobody better, go look at Steve Jobs. I mean, one of the best speakers of all time. But did you know he would say the natural delivery, he engineered it. People inside Apple say he rehearsed keynotes aloud for hours and even was so specific down to fonts and demo beats. Because the material was internalized, he could look at people move and improvise around this sort of solid spine of his speeches. But, you know, the best shorthand for how he speaks and why he's heard is the fact that he practiced for a really long time. Trap 7, constant self-deprecation. This one is common among us high performers. You joke about being bad at things. You downplay wins. You undercut compliments. I know sometimes it feels humble, and maybe sometimes it is, but overuse of this is nothing but self-sabotage. So research on impression management shows that strategic modesty works when balanced with being super competent. But the problem is chronic self-deprecation actually lowers your perceived ability, especially among people who don't know you yet. So there's actually a fabulous study on self-promotion versus modesty in job interviews. It's by Godfrey, Jones, and Lohr. And what they studied, the researchers wanted to test how different self-preservation strategies affect how people perceive you. Like, does modesty increase likability, for instance? So how did they do it? The participants acted as evaluators in a mock hiring scenario. They watched videotaped job interviews where applicants used different communication strategies: self-promotion, ingratiation, modesty, neutral controlled condition. The actors delivered identical qualifications, no different, right? Same resume, same background, same everything, except the style of delivery changed. After watching, evaluators rated the candidates on competence, likability, hireability. What do you think happened? Self-promotion increased ratings of competence, intelligence, and recommendations for hiring. Slight decrease in likability if too strong, but not that much. Ingratiation and modesty increased likability, but actually didn't increase competence, reduced perceived capability, and also reduced likelihood of them being referred for hire. The key insight: strategic self-promotion actually gets you hired. You being modest isn't helping anybody else but your competitors. And, I really want you to think about this, because a lot of times somebody will give you a compliment like, "You did a great job. That was a great presentation." And you reply, "Honestly, I totally winged it. It was kind of a mess." You just rewrote their perception. Upgrade move, accept the praise. Thank you. That's it. You don't need to shrink to be likable. Confidence with warmth is magnetic. Insecurity disguised as humor, nothing but transparent. So the pattern behind all these traps, if we're going to zoom out, is fear of social rejection, being wrong, fear of being judged, not being liked. Smart people feel this more because you actually see all the complexity of this. Oh, to be a beautiful idiot, right? You know how much you don't know. And so here's the paradox. The people who win rooms aren't the ones who know the most. They're the ones who manage perception of others best. And perception is heavily influenced by delivery, not just content. It's not about pretending. It's not like the fake alpha energy. It's really about aligning to how you can get the outcome you want. Your job isn't to defend against every possible criticism. It's to communicate clearly and let your ideas stand. And so I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. A simple speaking reset framework. Before important conversations, run this checklist. Am I hedging unnecessarily? Am I over-explaining? Am I rushing? Am I overcomplicating? Am I landing statements confidently? Am I comfortable with silence? Pick one thing to improve per week. Don't try to fix everything at once. Awareness alone is going to upgrade you 15, 20, 30%, because practice actually will help you upgrade the rest. Most smart people are not held back because you're dumb. You're held back because how that intelligence is delivered. If you fix the delivery, suddenly the room treats you like the smartest person there because now you sound like it. So if you want to outperform your peers in anything that involve words, there's a simple unfair advantage available to you. Rehearse more than they do, and rehearse with intent. Run the talk through out loud. Fix one thing each time. Do that obsessively, and people will start calling you unnatural. That's it for today. And next time you're in a meeting, listen for these traps. You're going to hear them everywhere. And once you do, you'll come back here and we'll figure out your next step.